Time Delight Edibles. My name is Liz, if this is the first time you're stopping by, and for the rest of you guys, welcome back and thank you so much. I just wanted to say I really appreciate your support. I couldn't have gotten as far on my channel as I have so quickly without you guys. You're amazing. I love your comments. Thank you so much. So today I am going to show you how to make a Swiss roll. That's right, a Canna Swiss roll with an infused whipped cream and a chocolate ganache icing here. And it is oh so good. And guess what? It's made from box cake. So I'm going to show you how you can do this from a box cake instead of always doing everything from scratch, because not everybody likes to cook from scratch. So I'm going to show you how fairly easy this is to make, and so I'm going to jump right into those ingredients, what we need of course, and show you how to put this puppy together. Thanks for joining.
Alright, so for our Swiss rolls, what we're going to need is a box of chocolate cake mix. So whatever flavor you like, not a big deal. And the only other thing is you just want to make sure that it requires oil so that we can incorporate our canna butter into it. And for this particular recipe, for the Swiss rolls, you want it to have 3 eggs. And yeah, so that's it for, just so brand wise doesn't matter as long as it has those ingredients for the cake mix. So for this cake mix for the Betty Crocker, it calls for 1 1/4 cups of milk or water. I like to do half and half. So I've got half and half milk and water here. And it calls for a 1/2 cup of vegetable oil. So I use a 1/4 cup of canna butter, melted canna butter, and a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. And then it calls for 3 eggs. And for this recipe, we want to separate our eggs, the whites and the yolks. Make sure there's absolutely no yolks in your egg whites, otherwise they will not fluff up like we need them to be. You also can have absolutely no trace of fat, so any bowl or the equipment that you use, you want to make sure that it is absolutely clean. And then you want just a couple of tablespoons of cocoa powder, just for rolling our cake. Not a huge deal, is not going to make or break if you do not have a couple of tablespoons of cocoa powder. Now for our whipped cream, you're going to want 1 cup of heavy cream. So what I've got here is a 1/2 cup of infused heavy cream. All right, so for our whipped cream, what I've got here, what you're going to need is 1 cup of heavy cream. Now I've got a 1/2 cup of infused heavy cream. So to make my infused heavy cream, what I did was I took a cup of heavy cream, about 1.5 cups of heavy cream. I added in about 3 grams of decarbed plant material, and I placed it into a pot of simmering water for 2 hours into a French press. You can use a French press or a mason jar, doesn't really matter. And the biggest thing is you just need to make sure that the water line is above your cream line so that it keeps your temperature controlled. Your cream doesn't get too hot. And that's it. Let it go for 2 hours, strain it out, put it back in the fridge overnight so that it's nice and cold. Because the really important thing for making really good whipped cream is to have very cold cream. So you need 1 cup of cream. So as I said, I'm using half of the infused and half of the regular heavy cream. You need 3 tablespoons of sugar. You can use granulated or confection, it doesn't matter. 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And in order to stabilize your whipped cream, so if you've ever made home regular whipped cream, you know if after a little while it starts to separate or it deflates and the water comes out, it's really kind of gross. How you stabilize that is with a little bit of gelatin. So we're going to use 1 teaspoon of unflavored gelatin, and we need 4 teaspoons of very cold water to bloom our gelatin. And that's it for the whipped cream. Then for our chocolate ganache frosting, you're going to need 2 cups of chocolate chips, semi-sweet, milk chocolate, dark, whatever your personal preference is. For the Swiss roll, it's generally a darker chocolate. You're going to need 1 tablespoon of light corn syrup, or you can use inverted sugar, or you can use honey if you don't like agave syrup. What else? Those are some substitutes that you can use in place of corn syrup. And you're going to want a tablespoon of regular butter or canna butter, totally your preference, and a 1/2 cup of cream. So I've used a 1/4 cup of regular cream and a 1/4 cup of my infused cream to make my 1/2 cup of cream. And that's for our chocolate ganache. And let's get into our equipment. So for our equipment, you're going to need a hand or a stand mixer. You're going to need both the paddle and the whisk or the whippy thing. You're going to need 2 mixing bowls, non-stick cooking spray, or unsalted butter. We just need to grease our pan and our parchment paper. You are going to need a 12 by 17 cookie sheet with parchment paper for its size, as well as you're going to need a second piece of parchment paper about the same size. You're going to need a couple of spatulas, an offset spatula, and a a hand blender or a whisk if you don't have one of these. And that's it for our main equipment. You'll need some other bowls and small saucepan for our ganache, but for the main of it, that's it. And so we're going to jump right in and we're going to start our cake batter. So the very first thing you're going to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Second, we are going to spray down our cookie sheet. Put a little non-stick spray onto there. And so that our parchment paper sits nice and flat. This is going to help with the rolling. You want to make sure that it sits nice into the pan like so. And then we're also going to spray our parchment paper. And we're going to set that off to the side till we need that. So the first part of our cake batter is we are going to mix up our wet ingredients and our egg yolks first, and then we're going to do our egg whites separately. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pour in my Canna butter. And the reason I melt it is so it's like oil. So it thinks it's a 1/2 cup of oil. I'm going to add in my other 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. And we're just going to add in an egg, 1 egg yolk or so. And I'm going to just start that mixing up. Once that gets incorporated, I'm going to add the rest of my egg. And I'm going to just pour in my milk slowly. Now the one thing you want to make sure is all your ingredients are room temperature. Very important so that your butter and things don't really solidify. Wrong way, shoot. All right, now if you want to enhance the flavor of chocolate, you can add a tablespoon of very strong brewed coffee or a tablespoon of espresso coffee. You're not going to taste the coffee at all, but it's going to enhance the chocolate flavor. So I'm just going to add that in now. And just give that a quick mixer-upper. And now I'm going to add in my cake batter. So I'm just going to add in all my cake mix. And we're going to blend that, mix that up until it's all thoroughly mixed up. And then we just want to make sure to scrape down the sides of our bowl. See all that stuff that hides up those sides? And I'll also scrape off the bottom. And I'm just going to mix that up for about another minute or so. Okay, so my cake batter, part of that's all done. Now we're going to whip up our egg whites and then we're going to incorporate it into the cake mix. I'm just going to set that off to the side here. And now I've got my other bowl. And like I said, I'm going to make sure to wipe everything off because you want to, as I said, it's very important that you can't even have a minute trace of any kind of fat or oil when you're working with egg whites. All right, so I've given that a wipe down. Secure my bowl, attach my whisk or my whippy thing, and take my egg whites, put them into the bowl. Okay, so some little stuff snuck in my bowl. I gotta go wash this again and I'll be right back. crisis averted. All right, so into the bowl the egg whites go. And you're gonna start them on medium-low for the first couple of minutes, and then you can turn them up to medium-high. And we're gonna whip these until we get stiff peaks. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes. So as they start to get foamy, then you want to turn it up to the medium-high. So I turned it up to high for the last 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm just gonna check my egg whites. Do we have stiff peaks? Certainly looks like we do. So to check if you have stiff peaks, you take your thing and you make peaks. If they hold up nice and stiff, that's stiff peaks, like so. Perfect. So now we are going to gently fold this into our cake batter. You take all your egg whites, flop them in there. Then we're gently going to get them folded in. We don't want to flatten out all that air. So you're just going to continue to fold it until it's all incorporated. We don't want to be stirring all crazy mixing. We just want to continue to fold over until the egg whites get incorporated. Once our egg whites are all incorporated, we're going to pour it a very thin layer onto the pan. So if you've got extra, no big deal, make cupcakes or a small cake, but we just want to pour a very thin layer. So I'm just going to just kind of pour it back and forth here. And then I'm going to use my offset. But again, you want to be very gentle. Don't press down too hard. We just want to fill our pan with a nice thin layer. So fill the pan, make sure it's nice and even. Then we're going to take our cake pan and we're going to shimmy it. Give it a little bit of a smack down, not too hard though. So you just, as I said, want to make sure that it's all nice and even. And we're going to pop this into our preheated oven for 10 minutes or until the top is just lightly bouncy. It's very important. We do not want to over bake this. And also, if you can clean up the edges. Looks nice, looks good, looks even. All right, into the oven she goes. And then the rest of the cake batter I said I'm going to make some cupcakes. Now your cupcakes will need to bake for probably about 25-30 minutes. So I'm going to bake these puppies up for about 20 to 25 minutes until they are nice and bouncy and until they're done. So you can put a toothpick inside and they come clean. So while your cake is baking, you want to get your second piece of parchment paper ready, because as soon as it's baked, we're going to flip it out and roll her up immediately. We're going to kind of create like memory foam with cake. And then on your parchment paper, if you've got the cocoa powder, you just want to sprinkle some cocoa powder onto it. There we go. Got all that ready for when my cake comes out, which will be about 5 minutes. All right, so our cake is done. And now I am going to immediately flip it out onto my other parchment paper. Oops. And I'm going to peel back the paper. It's supposed to stick. And we are going to roll this immediately with the parchment paper. So I'm just going to tuck that lip in there and carefully, it's a little warm, we're going to roll this puppy up. like so. And now we're going to put this into the fridge. You can either let it cool on the counter for a few hours, or you can put it into the fridge to speed things up. Totally up to you. I'm going to put it on a wire rack and pop it into the fridge there for about 2 to 3 hours to get that completely cool. And meanwhile, we'll get our whipped cream and our chocolate ganache made. All right, so my cake's been chilling in the fridge there, and it's time to make our whipped cream. So if you did put your cake into the fridge, you want to take it out and let it warm up so it gets warmed up to room temperature, because if we try to unroll it when it's too cold, it's going to break apart. So while we're making our whipped cream, it can heat up a little bit. So first step you want to do in order to make your whipped cream. So like I said, we're making a stabilized whipped cream. So this isn't it's not going to flatten out after a couple of hours, or are you going to get the seeping water. So the first step you want to do is to bloom your gelatin. So you're going to sprinkle the teaspoon of unflavored gelatin over 4 teaspoons of very cold water. You're going to stir that up so there's no lumps. Let it bloom, minimum of 5 minutes, or until we're ready to make your whipped cream. Then you're going to take your bloomed gelatin and sit it in a hot water bath to melt it. So we want our gelatin completely melted. So we want that ready before we start. So the first step we're going to do is we are going to attach our whisk attachment, which I need to go find. Uno momento, por favor. Okay, so they do whisk attachment. Yes, or the whippy thing. So we're going to add in our heavy cream, both our regular and our infused. We're going to add in our 3 tablespoons of sugar. Now you can use powdered sugar or regular granular sugar. I prefer the powdered sugar because 1, it's powdered, and 2, because it has that little bit of cornstarch in it, it's going to give it that little bit more stability. So in that goes. And we are going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. Now I'm going to be using the clear vanilla just to try and keep everything kind of on the white, but if you don't have the clear, not a big deal. And a teaspoon. And if you want to have more of a vanilla taste to it, you can add a little bit more vanilla to it. That's more of totally up to you. So we are going to start whipping this up until we get soft peaks. Once we get soft peaks, we're going to slow down the machine, and we are going to slowly pour our gelatin into our whipped cream. Duh. And we're going to increase the speed again until we get stiff peaks. So I'm just starting on low just to get the sugar incorporated so it doesn't go poof all over the place. And then just scrape down the edges of any of the powdered sugar if it's stuck to the sides here. And then we're going to turn this up and get her whipped up. Alright, so I'm just checking if we've got soft peaks yet. So pull it up, you get little peaks. No, so a little bit further before I start adding the gelatin. There we go. So soft peaks is so you pull it up and it creates soft peaks. Kind of like that on your spoon. Okay, so we're going to put the mixer onto low, and we're going to slowly pour our gelatin into our whipped cream. And we're going to let it mix up until it's fully incorporated there, and then we're going to turn it up to high till we get stiff peaks. And before flipping it on, just do a quick scrape down to the sides. Now we're going to turn this up to high, and we're going to whip it till we get stiff peaks. And there, I think we've got our stiff peaks. So yeah, so you as you hold it up, it's holding its shape. All right, we're good to go. Maybe. Okay, so I'm gonna get my cake. And we are just going to gently unroll our cake. Oops. If it did break apart a little bit, not a big deal. We can fix it. So I'm just going to push this back together so it's kind of back in one piece. Didn't come out quite as pretty as I'd like it, but as I said, we can fix it. Okay, so now I'm going to plop on our whipped cream and we're going to make a nice even layer of our whipped cream filling. So using your offset, even her out. You want to get it all evenly all over the cake from edge to edge. Now this time we're going to roll up our cake without the parchment paper. So you always want to go with your thinnest end, and you start with the paper just to get it going here, like so. Okay, stop sliding. Take it off this. Yeah, flat surface works much better. So you want to get that first tuck in nice and tight. And then you just kind of take your parchment to help you move it and roll it. And then you just pull it back as you roll. Like I said, if it does crack a bit, don't worry, because we're going to put that chocolate covering on it, which will help hide a lot of flaws. So this is what will happen if it gets baked a little too long. And there we go. We want to have it nice and tight. And side down. Now I'm going to get a serrated edge, and I'm just going to clean up our edges here. And part of why it's falling apart is I kind of rushed it. So I just want to have a nice clean end here. Oh yeah, trust me, I'm eating the scraps. And the other end. So you want to cut it to where your cake and your filling all meet nicely, so you have that nice clean edge. There we go. And now I'm going to put this into the freezer to let it get nice and cool for about a half an hour, because you want your cake, probably actually going to let it go for an hour. I want it nice and set and nice and cold, so when we apply our ganache frosting or ganache, whatever the hell it is, it's going to set really nicely and create a nice coating as well. It will help us glue our cake into place. If you've got cracks, the freezing of it will help glue it into place. See, we can always fix it. And you also, if you got an edge over here, you just want to take off any excess edge. Okay, so I'm going to pop that into the freezer and then to come back and we're going to make our ganache. And then for me, what I'm going to do, because I'm going to put it in the freezer, I'm just going to roll it, wrap it up in the parchment paper. There we go. I'm just going to put it in the tray, as I said, to freeze up for about an hour or so. So did you see me drop the cake on the floor? Yeah, that was freaking awesome. So my cake's probably going to look a little messier than what it should, but anyway, it's going to taste really good. I'm going to try some of the scraps here now. Oh, word of warning. Be careful on licking the bowl and the whisk there. You could hurt yourself.
All right, so now it's time to make our ganache. So you're going to need a half a cup of cream and a tablespoon of Canna butter or regular butter. I use the Canna, just give it that little bit more oomph. And we're going to add in a tablespoon of corn syrup. Or as I said, if you don't like corn syrup, you can use inverted syrup that you can make yourself, or agave syrup. Plop that in there. So you can either heat it on a double boiler over the stove, or you can heat it up in the microwave. And we want to heat this up to just to simmer. So we don't want it boiling, we just want it simmered. So I'm going to do it in the microwave. I'm going to first do it for 20 seconds and then 10 seconds until I get to my desired temperature. So I will be back, and then we are going to pour this onto our chocolate and get your hand blender ready. And for your chocolate, it's important, even if you use chocolate chips, to still chop them up so you've got some, so your chocolate's all fine and chopped up. So that way it melts a lot easier. All right, so we're going to take our cream and we're going to pour it evenly over our chocolate. And we're just going to pour about half of it, or 3/4 of it. Don't pour all of it in. Just kind of mush down the chocolate so it's all covered by the cream. And then we're going to let that sit for about 3 to 4 minutes to let the cream fully melt the chocolate. And what I do is I just gently work the cream into the chocolate as it's melting. Otherwise, parts of it will be melted and other parts will be clumped. So just gently work the cream into the chocolate so we can get it fully melted. And after about 3 minutes, I'm going to add the remainder of my cream. And the reason that we split that off is if you add in all the cream at one time, it can be too hot and burn your chocolate, especially if you're using a high grade dark chocolate. It's very delicate, so if your cream is too hot, it can burn it. You don't want to do that. So once your chocolate's all melted, we're going to get our handy dandy blender and we're going to emulsify this and make ganache. Look at the magic happen. So you're going to blend it till it's all nice and smooth and shiny. That looks yummy. Now I'm going to get my cake and we'll get this poured on. So my cake might have had some issues because it did hit the floor. Oops. Yeah, klutzy me. So I'm hoping it's not too much of a disaster. So you want to get 2 bowls because we want to have it standing up so we can pour it and it all drips down. So you want to get something like, anyway, 2 same size bowls. So I'm going to unwrap my cake. There she goes. Not too bad, thankfully. I'm just going to remove the parchment paper. And you want to make sure your sealed side, your edge side, is down on the bottom. Oh, that looks pretty good. Looks pretty even. Not too bad. So now you're going to take your ganache and you're going to pour it over your cake. Nice and evenly. Make sure to get the edge, those ends. Doesn't help when it wasn't even. And just with your offset, you can just smooth it a bit, but you got to do it quick before it cools. Don't forget your cake is cold, so it'll set very quickly. And there we got it, our Swiss roll. So now I'm going to transfer it over to a plate, and we're going to let that set. Well, actually, I'm going to let that set on the rack first. Let that ganache set up first, then I will transfer it. Otherwise, I will have issues. So I'm going to put it into the fridge for about an hour. And then when we come back, we're going to cut into that and show you how it looks. And I get to try it out. Yum, yum, yum. Can't wait. Now, with the extra ganache, what you can do, because you're like, oh my God, that's a ton of waste, is I'm going to scoop this into a piping bag and I'm going to use it for my cupcakes, as an icing for my cupcakes that I made with the extra batter. So I like to use a tall cup, put my piping bag over here. This makes it way easier to scoop it in. And I am going to scoop in my ganache. Get that gross. Then when this sets up a bit, I can use it as an icing, as I said, for my cupcakes. So I'm going to let that set up. It'll probably take about an hour or 2 hours or so till it's nice and firm but still pipeable. And then we just use it. I said you can pipe it onto your cupcakes, or you can fill your cupcakes with it. And so just cut out a hole in the middle, fill it up with the ganache, and use, if you've got extra whipped cream, use your whipped cream as your frosting, or as your icing, or whatever, as your whipped cream. All right, here is our Swiss roll. Check that out. Looks so yummy. So because I had a little issues because my cake fell on the floor, it was a little dented and stuff. Instead of having that nice smooth top, what I just did was make a drizzle across the top, so now it looks like a design. And you can't tell. Yay! So let's cut into this puppy and give her a try. Woo-hoo-hoo. I love when a plan comes together, even when I do drop it on the floor. Check it out. Looky, ah! All right, gonna give this puppy a try. Oh my God, that's so good. You have all of everything. You have just that hint of Canna from the whipped cream, which I really like. I love having your main flavors come through, and then you have that hint of Canna. You go, oh, there it is. So I hope you guys give this a try. It's an awesome recipe. And if you have any questions or comments, as always, you know where to put them, just down below. And thank you so much for joining me. I couldn't get this far in this channel without you guys. Your support has been awesome. Thanks again for watching. You have an amazing rest of your day.